go ahead and turn to Matthew chapter 4. And we're going to dive into verses 18 through 22. This is where Jesus, he calls the first disciples. It was kind of like, I remember when I was on the way, I had this message. It's been simmering for a while, and the Lord's like, not yet. I thought today was the day, but he said, not yet. And then there was a song that came up, and it was Back to the Beginning. I don't know if you ever heard that. It's a beautiful worship song. And that's where the Lord took me. He said, back to the beginning. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. So let's jump in. While walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Immediately they left their nets and followed him. And going from there, he saw two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother. They were in the boat with Zebedee, their father, mending their nets, and he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. So I read that and I can't help but see what Jesus said there, right? He said, follow me. Now this is a call for every single person, not just every Christian, every single person. The call of our lives is to follow Jesus. And I don't know any Christians that would ever debate otherwise, because it's right there in the Word, right? But what I want us to understand is the call to following Jesus is just the beginning of our journey. Jesus didn't say, follow me, but yet, that's all, folks. Like, it wasn't just a one-time thing. That was my best. Some of you guys understand, some of the younger kids might be like, what is he talking about? Is he freaking out? A little Porky Pig, right? He said, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Because following Jesus without making disciples is like paper without a pen. It's like bait without a hook, a computer with no keyboard, or a car with no gas. Alone, these things have value and they have use, but you need both for them to operate as they're intended to be. And likewise, to follow Jesus is to be a disciple and to make disciples. Doing one without the other is not how God intended us to walk out our faith. See, we're good with the follow me, but when it says go and make, then we're like, whoa. Slow down. I got to do something. And we got to put a little work behind this, right? Few understood this, like Dietrich Bonhoeffer. If you don't know who he was a German pastor, a theologian, a spy, and a key founding member of the Confessing Church. Bonhoeffer was imprisoned in 1943 for refusing to join the military and for speaking against Hitler's persecution of the Jews. Now, after a failed bomb plot in July of 1944, many of Bonhoeffer's friends and allies were convicted of attempting to assassinate Adolf Hitler. And the Nazis then decided that Bonhoeffer was too dangerous, and then Hitler ordered his execution. And then the Nazis, they hanged Bonhoeffer in the notorious Flossenburg concentration camp on April 9th, 1945, just 2 weeks before the end of World War II. See, this Christian martyr, this theologian, he was on fire for Christ, and he wrote a lot of books. The most famous one, though, is The Cost of Discipleship. And in this book, he said, Christianity without discipleship is always Christianity without Christ. Bonhoeffer, he got this. And it's my prayer that we would all embrace a faith that moves us to act, a faith that says no matter where I am in life, I must follow. So let's dig in, shall we? Verse 21, in the same verses in Matthew that we just read, it says, Jesus called them. And that's my first point. Jesus, he calls disciples. See, these fishermen, they didn't go looking for Jesus. Jesus came to them. He came to where they lived, and he called them to be his disciples. And that's the beauty of Jesus, right? He meets us where we are, but he loves us too much to leave us where we are. He says, come, follow me, and then we respond, much like the disciples, by leaving our past behind. See, the scriptures say that Peter and Andrew at once left their nets. That was their livelihood. It says that James and John immediately left the boat and their father, livelihood and family. It says in Matthew and later verses, it said he got up and followed him. And these are just a few examples of how people responded to Jesus after he said, follow me. So let me be clear. We've all been called to follow him. Regardless of where you grew up, how you lived your life, how much money you have, or what terrible sins you've committed, Jesus is calling you to become one of his disciples. He doesn't care where you are. He doesn't care where you've been. He's simply saying, follow me. Will you? Will you follow him? Because if you're willing to follow him, you can't stay where you are. You can't stay stuck in living in your past, going back to the same old things, doing the same old business, expecting different results. What's that called? Insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, right? We've got to leave our past where it is. Stop going back for a dabble. Stop going back for a high five and a how you been. It's see you later, no longer, I'm dead and gone, right? To you, my past, I live no more to. I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again. One of the best quotes I heard about something like that is there's no room in the land of the dead, or there's no room for the living in the land of the dead. I mean, think about that. If we're alive in Christ, going back to the dead world, it's not going to feed us. It's not going to do anything for us. Leave our past there. You can't stay there. You got to move forward. We got to put our faith into action. For example, if I call my wife and I say, I'm on the way home from work, but I never show up, then my words don't mean a whole lot, do they? If I say, Jesus, you I will follow, but never go after him, what does that say? I heard it said that belief is measured by action. And if we are to follow, we can't stay where we started. We have to act and follow. Stop going back, like I said, to the same people, places, and things that are holding you back from giving Jesus everything you have. Do you know that Jesus wants all of you? He doesn't want a little bit. He doesn't just want us on Sundays or Wednesdays or in our prayer closets. He wants us 100% all the time, every day. We got to give him everything. He's calling us to leave our old life, to follow him, and to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. But as I said before, it doesn't stop there. We can't have peanut butter without jelly. That's that Southern coming out right there. Can't have Cagney without Lacey. Can't have Michigan roads without potholes. Just like as followers of Christ, we must also go and make disciples, right? Jesus took this group of ordinary men, right? Made up of 5 fishermen, 1 farmer, a tax collector, a couple of nationalists, a zealot, a pessimist, a latecomer, and a Pharisee. And Jesus called these men disciples. These men left their past and they followed him. And then he transformed them into disciple makers. But before I dive into that, let's answer this one question though. How do I know if I'm following, right? Because, like I said before, we can get the call. Do we answer? That's one. And then how do I judge if I'm following? Because we got to do the two before we get to the disciple making, right? Let me put it this way. I have a passion for football. Let me rephrase it. I have a passion for watching football. I ain't playing much football these days. Especially the Green Bay Packers. If anybody knows me, I love watching them, even when they lose, you know. I mean, my man Jacob calls me cheesehead all the time, you know. It's cool. I embrace it. I don't have season tickets or anything, but, you know, I've been on the season ticket waiting list for 15 years. Still haven't got anything yet. But usually I watch the games on TV, or I'll, worst case scenario, listen to them on the radio. I keep track of all the best players, where they went around the NFL and free agency, who they drafted, and if someone is dogging my team, you know, I'll defend them. And I've been known to, you know, give some Lions and Bears fans a hard time from time to time, you know, because I'm a huge Packer fan, win or lose. However, I don't have any sort of relationship with the players or the coaches. I have family that lives in Green Bay, and I've been to live games before, but I've never played on the football team. I don't work out in their gym. I don't train on their field or study their playbook. I don't live with the team, eat with the team, or practice with the team. I don't even have any relatives or close friends that are on the team. In fact, the head coach, Matt LaFleur, he has no idea who I am or what my name is. I'm not on the team and never will be, because I'm just a fan. In contrast, true followers of the Packers, I was going to say Jesus, right? We're not there yet. True followers of the Packers are on the team. They were selected by the GM and the coaches to be on the team. They put on the pads, they strap on the helmets, they come in as rookies, and they work side by side with the starters. They train hard in the offseason, learn the playbook, and they're ready to step in as a starter, or if the starter goes down. As they mature as a player, though, they may even become a full-time starter. But regardless, they have a specific position and a call on the team. And those people have the right to be called Green Bay Packers. Now, here's some questions. Thinking about that, right? Don't raise your hand. These are rhetorical. Just self-reflect, right? Here's some questions that we can help us examine ourselves to see if we truly are following or if we're holding on to our past. Do we have a personal relationship with Jesus, or do we just know about him? Do we talk to him daily or only admire him on Sunday? Do we put on the full armor of God, or we just wear the t-shirt? Are you leaning on God's playbook, the Bible, or do you just analyze the plays and stats of other followers and criticize them? See, truthfully, it all boils down to this point. Fans sit on the sidelines. Followers are in the game. And when we follow, we are transformed. We're transformed because Jesus, my second point, transforms disciples. Verse 19 says, "And I will make you." You gotta read the "I will make you disciples" is great, but "I will make you." Who? He will make you. Jesus' goal is to transform us into his likeness. Not our favorite celebrity, not our favorite athlete. We're not trying to, I love Tebow, but man, it ain't about the Tebow time. It's about Jesus all the time. We want to be transformed into his likeness, nothing else. We live in a copycat society where people copy. I mean, you go on YouTube, Instagram, one person gets 1 million likes and everybody duplicates that, right? Christianity needs to be like that. But the one that we duplicate is Christ. Romans 8:29 says, "For those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son." 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old things pass away, and behold, new things have come." Ephesians 4:22 through 24 says this, "You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of our minds, and to put on our new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness." Righteousness, holiness. Jesus is in the business of transforming hearts and minds. But it comes at a cost. The cost is that we would lay down our lives and let him live his life through us. He transforms us so that we can become the hands and feet of him. He renews us and trains us so that we would tell our story and ultimately his story. Ian Wilson wrote of an interaction he had with a London businessman called Lindsay Clegg. He said he told the story of this warehouse property that he was selling, and the building hadn't been empty for months and needed repair. In fact, vandals had damaged the doors, smashed the windows, and thrown trash all over the interior. And as he showed a prospective buyer the property, Clegg took pains to say that he would replace the broken windows, bring in a crew to correct any structural damage, and clean out all the garbage. About repairs, the buyer ended up saying, "Forget about the repairs. When I buy this place, I'm going to build something completely different. I don't want the building, I want the site." Now, compared to the renovation God has in mind for us, our efforts to improve our own lives are trivial as a sweeping warehouse slated for a wrecking ball. When we become God's, the old life is over. He makes all things new, and all he wants is the site and the permission to build. Will you give him permission? Jesus wants to transform and not make your old thing better. He wants to give you new things, right? Will you allow him? Will you allow him? Sometimes we get in our own way. We hold back God's favor and blessing because we just don't step out in faith. But the thing is, if you are willing to allow God to transform you and renew you, then here's what comes next. A disciple will become a disciple maker because Jesus commissions disciples. For whatever reason, this is where some believers begin to get a little uncomfortable or tune out. But you can't have fire without a flame, like you can't be a disciple and not make disciples. I love what one of the places I go for a lot of my definitions is BibleStudyTools.com. It's a great resource. And I love what they said. They said, through his Great Commission, Jesus focuses his followers on the ongoing importance of discipleship through the ages. And he declares the responsibility of disciples towards the world. They are to make disciples of all nations. To make disciples is to proclaim the gospel message among those who have not yet received forgiveness of sins. And the command finds verbal fulfillment in the activities of the early church as they went from Jerusalem to Judea to Samaria to the ends of the earth, proclaiming the message of Jesus and making disciples. See, in the early church, to believe in the gospel message was to become a disciple. To make disciples of all nations is to make more of what Jesus made of us. Let me say that one more time. To make disciples of all nations is to make more of what Jesus made in us. We must be disciples before we make them. But we can't stay there. we can't stay the disciples and not make them. Because according to verse 19, it says, he makes us fishers of men. Again, Matthew pens Jesus' last words before he left this earth, which were, therefore, go and make disciples to all the nations. Now, I don't know about you, but I like to think that when we leave someone, we want our lasting words to count. We want our last words to be important and to make a lasting impression on the people that we're speaking to, right? Especially if we know it's coming. For example, when I leave my house, I don't always do this, but I do try to remember to tell my wife specifically, I love my kids too, but I try to tell my wife I love her every time when I leave the house. Some of you might be asking a weird question, like, why would you tell your wife you love her? Oh, good question. I do love her. But also when I leave, I want to ensure that my last words express how I feel about her. I love her and I want her to know it. Because we never know if these will be our last words when we leave. Here's some famous last words by people you may or may not know. If you know who Cagney and Lacey are, you might know all these. George Harrison, the last words to his family were, love one another. After a priest told Charlie Chaplin, may the Lord have mercy on your soul, his last words were, why not? After all, it belongs to him. Harriet Tubman's last words were, swing low, sweet chariot. Last words are important. Usually important, because some make them count, but others not so much. But Jesus, he made his last words count when he said, go and make disciples. So do me a quick favor real quick. Real quick? Yeah, you get what I'm saying. Close your eyes just for a moment. And I want you to envision Jesus calling you. He's saying, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. Not everybody in this room, but you specifically. And I want you to ask yourself this in your heart. Have you answered his call? Have you left your old life to follow him? Or is your old life what you run to when you're not with him? Are you allowing him to transform your life into his likeness? Are you telling your story and his story to others? Are you fulfilling his great commission by going and making disciples? If not, then why? What's holding you back? Because he's calling you. He wants to transform you, and he wants to work through you. Will you let him? Because we can't stay where we are. We've got to follow him.